Um, Thank you all for coming tonight, and it's just great to start having with our online sessions, having our first online session with no greater person than CJ Ung to get us going with how to negotiate higher fees. There's so much talent in the China trainers community, and it's just great for us to have this opportunity to start sharing that. So
对啊，
one moment. Okay, just put some mute on that one. All right, now you see CJ. So yeah, let me introduce CJ, although he needs no introduction. So CJ is a bilingual English and Mandarin facilitator and sales leadership coach. He's the co-creator of Sales Map Sales Proficiency Assessment. He's also the author of Winning the B2B Sale in China and his new release, Data-Driven Sales Leadership. CJ is also an IAC Masteries practitioner, and as if that's not enough, is an ICF Professional Certified Coach also. And he's a certified speaking professional, having worked at multiple large multinational companies around the world. And it's great to have you here, CJ. And if we want to learn about this topic, how to negotiate higher fees, you're the man. So over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. So, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining for this event for the kickoff for the China training. What's the last C? Club, cooperative, and for the session. We got people from China, we got people from Singapore, we got, I don't know if it's Alexis from Penang, Malaysia, and welcome everybody to the session. Now, this is a session created by trainers for trainers, all speakers. So one of the key things, especially in an economic situation like this, is well, there's a lack of vitamin M. We kind of felt that if we can get jobs and if the jobs can pay a little bit more, that will be fantastic. So this is what I want. I'd like everybody to do in your chat box. So you have the question on the screen. So in the chat box, if you could just type in. Oops, hang on a second. Why am I only able to message Jamie?
Oh, same here. Only able to message Jamie.
Oh no.
Maybe he needs to crunch the numbers for us.
It's not a conspiracy. It's let me try to fix this. Hey, what am I? What do I do this?
Oops.
Okay. Let me try and find.
I told you 1 hour ago to start learning.
Oops. Who's that?
Let's see.
Hey,
so how about I'll just I don't know how to fix this right now. So
okay. No.
So Neil says 6 to 7.
Right. So just type in on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you happy with your current rates that you're getting? And Jamie will do the number crunching and give us an average number of everybody.
No maths. Eric says 6. Sonia says 7. Jeanette says 3. And Dan says depends on which client, but generally 8. Alexa says 5. Ruddy says 7. Winnie says 7.
Wow.
Luke says 7. A lot of 7s.
Wow. And the next question is, what do you think needs or must happen to bring you to a higher score? So, well, before I go here, so if anyone would like to just open a mic and share, whatever the number is, could be 6, 7, or 8, or 5, what do you think must happen so that you can get to the next score? Anyone?
Reddy says it's depending on the client location and the decision. Alexa says more conviction in negotiating.
More conviction. Wow. Okay.
Mm.
Anyone would like to just say something? I mean, we are a bunch of trainers here, so
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you want, or speakers,
Welcome to speak out. Dan says know the market rates.
Eric.
Yes. I
Yes.
would say know the market rates, also know how to position yourself because,
Yeah.
you don't want to be just the average trainer. You want to be that exceptional trainer. I think
Yeah.
just
We all
market
want to
yourself
be.
to.
Thank you. Right. Cindy, yes.
Yeah, I have a couple of perspectives on that. First of all, it depends on who you are negotiating with. And I have a smile on my face because I see Yiling here. So if it's going through the procurement process, it's
Ah,
your negotiation slightly differently versus dealing with the buyer directly, meaning the business. So I say that with a smile. So
thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Did I see leave somewhere? Do you want to say something? Elaine?
Yeah, actually, I'm from the other side, from the company and the buyer.
Uh-huh.
Actually, I
Okay,
think
before you go on a scale of 1 to 10, rate your satisfaction level of paying trainers.
Cindy knows, yeah, it's also comparison. As you mentioned, as a market, there are so many trainers or so many agencies. It's easy for me to know I can say the best price. I cannot say the lowest price, but the best price, I can find it out very quickly.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Elaine. Sonia, want to say something?
Goes along these lines a little bit, but I think if you move away, or if it's possible to move away from talking about budgets and maybe even market prices and more talking about value created in that specific case. So then you can actually bring that value on the road, right?
Right. Right. Sure. Absolutely. Don't just talk about pricing. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else before I go forward?
I
Yes.
just want to say that I think the chat is fixed now, so you should be able to.
Ah, yay.
I'm sorry about that.
Yes. And hello. Okay, great. So we have the chat box. A sharper description of, thank you, Luba, of the value in the client's language. Okay, so we'll see how do we mean by value, and I think we will have a discussion on value, and as in what do you mean by value, especially in the trading context. Just to get ahead with some of the key things that we'd like to discuss. The 5 things that could affect your rates. So the first one is, what is the kind of expected outcomes do your customers want? And simply put, if they want someone to move mountains and move sea, probably you get paid a little bit more versus if it's just the normal thing that you can watch on whether it's Bilibili, YouTube, or somewhere for free. Yeah, probably they are not going to pay a lot more. Eric's saying you need to work with the right training companies and clients. Great. Eric, I hope I'm one of those. Thank you. Then, very much depends on client maturity and who you are Absolutely. How many of you feel that many or some of your customers know nothing about training? So if you believe or if you have encountered customers dealing with you know absolutely zilch, nothing about training, please type the letter Y. Otherwise, type the Right. So if you feel that some of your customers know nothing about training, best to talk with decision makers instead of procurement or low-ranking HR. In fact, many HRs don't really know what's going on. I've worked with some great, fantastic HRs that are in the thick of what's happening and know the business inside out. And I've worked with some HRs. In fact, just very recently, this came from a training company, HR from a pharmaceutical. It's an international company, and they're looking for, firstly, a coach. They want a PCC level coach. Okay, fine. I understand that. But they want a PCC level coach that has been a sales director for an international company. So they want someone who knows about sales, which is still okay, but that's not enough. They want to have a PCC coach who's a sales director in that industry, pharmaceutical in China. Right, so well, firstly, it's a little bit difficult, challenging to find such a person, and secondly, are they really looking for a coach or are they looking for a mentor? And even if they're looking for a mentor, how would the experiences of that sales director slash coach be applicable to this very company? It's a huge question mark, and of course, most of the time, if you're a good, successful sales director, you stick with being a sales director rather than being a coach. So it's one of those issues. Cindy, from my opinion, most would have a good understanding of, there would be. And Ryan, some startup company here in China knows very little about training, not just startup. Some of you see, the thing about training learning, it's a subsection of HR, if it's under HR at all. So there are HRs who are great in doing business partners. There are HRs who are great in recruitment. There are HRs who are great in just general HR. So learning development is just one part of it. And most of the time, the budgets may not be controlled by HR. And a lot of HRs, despite the best efforts, they may know what is good training, but they may not know enough about the business units, the users of the training to really deliver something that's really applicable. So that's the flesh is willing, but the will is not just not there. Or the mind is willing and the flesh is weak. Eric, yes, saying some big companies who said their KPI was BIS, bets in States. Okay, Rudy, nothing is a lot. Let me say what expectations they have are realistic and deliverable. Sometimes people have huge expectations, and sometimes we've got multiple stakeholders having different expectations, and they're all pulling in totally different directions. And as trainers, somehow we've got to find a way to squeeze everything in half a day. So those are some of the things. As coming back to the point on the slide, expected outcomes customers want. Sometimes it can be crazy. Two is, who is the economic buyer and what are the decision criteria? So this is some sales lingo over here. We use the word economic buyer in the sense that economic buyer is someone who holds the budget. So if someone who can approve budgets or even shift budgets as an increase, decrease, get budget from somewhere else. So someone who really controls the budget. Sometimes it could be L&D. So L&D at the learning development L&D could be given a budget at the beginning of the year, and they will somehow need to do their own description, how they want to spend the money. And most time, however, especially in my field and in sales training, a lot of times the budget are either with the sales organization or for smaller companies with senior managers, with a general manager. So it may or may not be the person that you are talking to. So a lot of times when whether it's trainers or even the partners that we work with, the training companies that we work with, they tend to work almost exclusively with everyone within HR, everyone within the L&D, and very little or too little with the real stakeholders that holds the budget, right? So are you able to reach out to the people behind the scenes, the people who holds the budget, and then what is that decision criteria? Just some time ago, I got this request to say that, a sales team would like to learn about strategic planning. Okay, so we want to learn about strategic planning. And I asked, okay, why does a sales team want to learn about strategic planning? Are they sales managers or even senior sales managers that need to map out strategies? And that took a long while, and they eventually decided that the needs have shifted. They decided to do something else. Okay, that's the story. But the topic itself is not a decision criteria. The decision criteria is that why are we doing this? What is the outcomes, as mentioned earlier? And what are some of the things that must happen in order to reach those outcomes? So it can be some skills we want to learn. It can be some changes that we want to see people to do. It can be things that we'd like to see improve in general. So if, let's say, once upon a time, I do a lot of cross-department communication and conflict resolution. Not that there are a lot of conflicts in the office, but generally we would like to have better cross-department collaboration. If there are any things that two people from different departments need to work together, if there's less escalation to get their managers to kind of do the jobs for them, can they work out with one another somehow and get things done? So it's along those lines, and the decision criteria in those in that scenario is, okay, we need to have some cases in that workshop that reflects what are some of the examples, what are some of the key happenings, key scenarios that happen in cross-department communication, or how does that conflict actually happen? We like to have some tools, some takeaways, and some know-hows on how to work things through on a more junior level and escalate only when you have a kind of a half-baked solution in mind that you have discussed with your counterparts in other departments. So those will be decision criteria to say that, hey, in order for this workshop, for this training to be successful, what are some of the things that must happen? What are some of the things that must be there? And then we know that the participants is happy, management is happy, the objectives are delivered. Those are the decision criteria, right? So those, and again, it may not be, sometimes we get a blank stare. Sometimes we get I don't know, let me check kind of answer from L&D, from HRs, when we ask, no. So what do you mean? What are some things that you're looking for in order to make this successful? Are you able to research and benchmark rates? So it's great that Cindy works really, really well with Ewing, and I can see, you can sense that you are really great friends. So make friends with the customers, and you can get a lot of intel, a lot of information from customers. As in, what is kind of benchmark rates that customer, or those kind of customers that fit into similar profiles, what are they paying? It also makes sense. That's why we have WeChat groups and trainers groups to share notes, as in, how much are you getting for this deal and how much are you getting for that deal? I don't know. It may be a Chinese thing because it's typical Chinese. Whether it's mainland Chinese or overseas Chinese like myself, it's typical Chinese to like to share how much are you making, how much am I making. So it's not a taboo to compare notes about how much money you are getting. So yeah, research benchmark rates, as in what is a reasonable range, and are you going in on the higher end? Are you going in on the low end? If you want to give a discount because times are not so nice, how much of a discount are you going to give? What is the bottommost line? And again, I would also want to add, besides researching and benchmarking rates, if you work with training companies, also find out more about the training company. Again, in Singapore, we do have one of the training companies that, unfortunately, I mean, the boss is a nice lady, but they kind of had a bad reputation with trainers. With customers, they're fine, but with trainers, they're kind of bad in the sense that they have a lot of staff that are kind of part-timers or outsourced people that really don't know what a customer wants. They don't understand training, and as a result, they they were being pushed to us to deliver a lot of things. The scope keeps on increasing. And because they're such nice people, they're also nice to the customers. They are being squeezed on their rates, which means they give trainers very low rates as well. Now, the thing is, sometimes trainers are willing to go really low at times when business is not quite good, or it is really the low season, nothing's happening for that time of the month. And some trainers are willing to say that, hey, since I'm doing nothing, something is better than nothing. It's a simple topic. I can do it with my eyes closed, only to find out that the customer, the end customer, is actually much more demanding and much more discerning with a lot of requirements than what was initially discussed. So research benchmark rates, and if you want to give discounts, sure, why not? But do have an understanding that what kind of situations are you going into? Are you just going to give a discount and that's it, or are you going to give some condition to a discount that it's only valid for a certain time? You don't do more than it's required. This is a one-off thing. It cannot be used as a reference for future deals whatsoever. So you may want to put those conditions in. Number four is about aligning your work scope and fees with the outcome. So we mentioned about outcomes at number one. So why do I wait till number four to say align the work scope? Because you need to know 2 and 3, right? So what is it that you need to do, and what are the deliverables? Are the customers happy with that? Alex is saying that I was contacted by the training company yesterday for a half day in Xi'an, and they wanted me to pay for travel expense out of pocket. I'd rather stay home and work in my garden. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and things like this happen. I was that training company. I was contracted to do. I did stuff for them once, and I didn't do it. Part of it was I was asked to go all the way to Suzhou on my own training and expenses as well. The fortunate thing is I had actually planned a trip to Suzhou then from Singapore, so it kind of coincided. But yeah, if I don't have travel plans during that period, yeah, my response is probably the same as Eric's. Yeah, so yes, so find out what's in it, and just some context. Listen, I'm now based in Singapore, and a lot of my customers, a lot of my training are still in China. So I can have a rate that is, this is the rate you pay. I will arrange my own travel and expenses. So it's part of that bundle. And it's in there, and I can work it out to kind of take a cheap flight from Singapore and bunk into some apartments in China to cover that expenses. So again, it really depends on how you want to work it out. Then there are objections that you probably need to work it out. Of course, usually with fees, as in, can it be cheaper? I had a managing director of a company as an end customer who said that, hey, we can get someone cheaper. Can you match this rate? And I was like saying that, oh, well, if you really believe that you can get what you need to get at the kind of rate, why aren't you contacting that trainer? Why are you contacting me? So if you believe that it's a free market, you can hire me, you can hire anyone. If you feel that you are going to get the training outcomes that you want, and if it's a slight discount, okay, that's negotiable. If it's going to be a lowball offer, then probably it could be a way to just walk away or just politely let the other person know that no, if someone whom you trust and can deliver and is really giving such attractive rates for you, then from your perspective, grab it. So that's some of the 5 things to just cover in a very short while. Before I go on, any further questions or comments? And feel free. It's great that everybody or many people are typing into the chat box. So yeah, feel free to keep that going. Right? No. Okay. So let's just look a little bit about outcomes versus training needs. So just now I was saying that if someone wants sales training is not an outcome. I just use the context of sales, right? And a lot of times people will say, okay, does it mean that if I go for sales training, my sales will increase? Well, yes and no. It really depends. A lot of what I do is B2B sales, which means the sales cycle can be 3, 6, 9, 12 months. So you really never know the extent of whether it's a good training, it's bad training, is it really effective, does it deliver outcomes until 1 year after the training, because it's a long sales cycle. So if you don't know how what are the kinds of measurements, the kind of outcomes that are required, then you got to think about, okay, let's say, coming back to sales training, our sales team needs help in beefing up their sales skills, right? So that they can close more sales, win more customers, and ramp up the sales figures. Now, if we are going to say that, that there's something in the selling skills that need to be fixed, which aspects, right? Are we able to kind of drill down to say that no, they don't really approach new customers. They keep on selling to old ones, and old customers are kind of shrinking because of the current economic outlook. They don't really know how to contact more stakeholders beyond the usual procurement, and as a result, they are all squeezed in terms of price and all that. They're not able to negotiate and so on. So, what are some of the key things that need to be addressed? So those are the outcomes, much more than just to say I need X kind of training, right? So we're always looking into the outcomes, and by outcomes must be measurable, and measurable doesn't mean figures, doesn't mean quantifiable. So as mentioned earlier on, if there's going to be a certain kind of outcomes, is there something that the customer would like to, some challenges they'd like to address, some things they'd like to see improved, right? So outcomes can be quantifiable. So if you can use numbers, fantastic. Most of the time, it's hard to put a number on a training result. So it can also be observable. So when I was talking about, say, cross-department communication and conflict resolution or teamwork, so before the training, everybody was like pushing one another and kicking the can down the road and blaming one another and fighting with other departments. And after the training, you find that people make an effort. It may not be really fantastic yet, but people make an effort to reach out to other departments to discuss, to co-create solutions, to overcome challenges on their own. So is that something that is observable in some behavior, right? So it can be quantifiable if you are able to do that. If not, it can also be observable. Now, some of us, I don't know if we got people like Alicia, if you're doing something that is more for the mind and soul and well-being, it can also be palpable, it can be felt. So if you're doing something like mindfulness or general well-being, you don't really interact with other people, but is it something that you can feel about certain changes in the trainees and participants at the end of the training or after the training, right? So it can be quantifiable, observable, or palpable. And ultimately, if you're dealing with corporates, how do these outcomes impact your customer? right? So is that an issue that they would like to resolve or improve on? Is there going to be certain impacts either directly with the bottom line of the company or with general productivity, effectiveness, or with improving levels of, say, harmony, improving levels of motivation or engagement? Is there something that these outcomes, whatever it is, does it impact the companies you work with? And again, why outcomes? Why impacts? If there's not going to be much impact, sometimes we get requests like, can you do a communication skills training? And I say, okay, so is there something that you'd like to address? No, it's just that we do communication training every year, and every year we like some people go through it. Any desired outcomes out of it, well, just communicate, nothing else. And if it's not going to be impactful for the company, I'm not saying that you will get a low fee, but under the current economic situations, it's very much likely that the fees aren't going to be fantastic, or worse, those kind of training may just be cut off since it's got no impact to the customer whatsoever. Right, so that may be the case. Now,
CJ, excuse
yes.
me, just one moment. I've got a couple of messages from a couple of the Chinese participants that they're finding it a little bit hard to hear you because they said, I'm not sure if it's technology or something that's happening that's a little bit muffled. Is it possible to adjust somehow?
Okay, sure. Let me. Is it better now?
Yeah, a bit better. I think so.
Right. So sorry. And feel free. I know it's a tech issue, Jamie. Feel free to turn on subtitles, captions.
Oh. Okay, I'm learning all these new skills. Oh yeah. Okay. Great.
Right. So just to summarize, in case you missed me, in terms of the outcomes, think about what is the kind of outcomes and can you measure it for the companies that you work with. If you don't have a clear outcome, in the current market situations, that training can be cancelled, because we want to save on budget, right? The other thing about the outcomes is outcomes can be measurable. If outcomes need to be measurable, it may be quantifiable, as in 可以量化, right? So we can count it. If not, 如果不能够量化, it can be observable, so 观察, so we can actually see changes in behavior. And even if you do something like mental well-being, mindfulness, 正念, it can be palpable, right? 可感受到, right? So is that something that you can deliver and people can feel or observe it? Right? So that's and how it's going to impact your customer. So this part, this very slide, we're talking about who pays the bills. And as I mentioned earlier, we are looking at people who controls the budget. So HR may be paying for the training, but may not control the budget. HR may be the executioner. That means they implement, they're given this amount, and all they can do is just to disburse payment. They may have a say in selecting who is the better trainer, the right trainer, but they may not be the person that is forking out the money to pay you. Right? So if you are able to speak with and reach out through HR or through other means, reach out to the person who pays the bills, who creates or can control that budget, those are the people's opinions and requirements that are the most critical because they pay the bill, right? They'll have their requirements, they'll have their expectations. So HR or L&D may not be the ones who control the budget. So who holds the budget? It could be R&D, but most of the times it could be some BU head or some department head that really controls the budget. And if they say they want to have a topic on cross-culture cross-culture management, okay, and they want cross-culture in a way to understand how business is being conducted in Southeast Asia, for example. What's behind? Why do they have the kind of decision criteria? Are they sending people to look in Southeast Asia, or are they merely going to interact with colleagues from Southeast Asia, right? So there is a decision criteria, but what is the reason behind it? And are you able to address those decisions, those criteria? If you are, then again, you may be putting a step closer to delivering the outcomes of the people who pays the bill, right? So then the next question is, okay, what is the going rate? As I mentioned earlier on, you may want to benchmark, but who do you benchmark with? I remember, I think we have, I don't know if we got good people from Clark Morgan, one of the bigger, more successful training companies in China. And Eric trains a lot for Clark Morgan as well. And initially, Clark Morgan started out as business English, right? And then they found that the market for business English is pretty much the lower end, and it's getting lower and lower and lower end. And they decided that no, we're not going to go into business English anymore. We need to pivot, we need to transition, and they made the pivot and transition into soft skills and leadership, right? So that's how they are looking at serving a different market. Oh, Cindy has a hand up. Sorry, Cindy, I can see your hand. Cindy, please.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I was really intrigued about something you said on the earlier slide. Is it okay to ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sorry about that. One of the things I was interested to get your perspective, or maybe even other colleagues in the room, you're talking about the decision maker, right? Or the economic buyer and some of the decision criteria. And one of the things I'm curious about is how do you deal with, because oftentimes you can be very clear who the decision maker is. You can have a pretty good sense of what the criteria is, but maybe there is someone that is protecting the decision maker. So I'm going to say gatekeeper. And you know what happens oftentimes is when we get in front of the business leader, that initial concept actually has changed quite dramatically because of the conversation you're able to have in the room, which is very different than the initiator of the request. So I'm really curious, and this would hold true probably maybe with newer clients where you're getting to know newer people. So I'm curious about that one.
Absolutely. I mean, it even holds true for existing clients that we had. So along with these definitions we call economic buyers decision criteria, it falls under a framework called MEDDIC, MEDDICC. I'm not going to go into that. We have this client that came to us and said, we want this training, and the decision maker was, of course, the managing director. And from end to end, we never spoke with the managing director. So we had this training manager to say that, can you do something? I said, we can. And we gave an outline. We did it without much fuss. And a year later, they changed the training manager. And the new training manager asked for the same thing. But all decisions got stuck because the managing director did not give further instructions on what to choose, what to do, how to select, nothing. So it can happen as well. And you're right to say it's just like coaching. Coaching, we like to start with, what would you like to work on today? What would you like to discuss today? Right? We talk about the topic. And then as we move along, we'll ask, okay, by the end of our conversation today, what is it that you want to achieve at the end of the conversation? And then there may be some changes. And then as you go on and on, it's like, okay, what are some of the core issues? What really is the problem? And it went to a different direction again. So it happens in coaching in a 1 hour coaching session. And if we put that context into, you have a boss, you have a decision maker, and you have someone who's being appointed to be the gatekeeper. The decision maker is just telling the gatekeeper the first thing on their mind. What would you like to discuss today? The first thing. And the gatekeeper only has that information and has got no context whatsoever why this topic, why the boss or the decision maker is so vested into it, and what are some of the key things. So when a gatekeeper tells us, we are kind of led into a bunch of assumptions that are pretty much superficial, right? The unfortunate thing is we probably will need to win the trust of that gatekeeper so that we can get to see the decision maker. And then the decision maker will say, hey, actually, that's not what I want. But thank you for coming. Right? So it's just a fact of life, and those kind of things do happen and do happen quite frequently.
So you're saying lots of patience then?
Lots of patience, a bit of luck, because you may be struck off because you complied completely with the gatekeeper's requirements. And you can also be struck off because you thought you have a better solution than what is required by the gatekeeper. So that's a bit of luck in both ways. You are struck off because you complied fully because the gatekeeper will pass your information that you complied 100% to the decision maker, and then the decision maker will say that, hey, that's not what I want. So can we change to someone else? So you are unfortunate that you try to comply and you were not selected. Or in a different scenario, you try to be smart. You try to say that, no, this is not going to work. If you really want this to work, this is what you need to do. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what you need to do. And then the gatekeeper says, no, that's not what my boss wants. No, I'm not going to choose you. I'm going to choose someone else. So there's a little bit of luck in there.
DJ,
Yes.
I remember being approached by a client years ago. It was a new client. Met them at an AmCham event and said, hey, you have exactly what we're looking for. We needed training. It's in less than 2 weeks. And I was talking to someone who's VP level. I'm like, yay, decision maker, yay, or like that. And then after I sent the proposal, I said, that's exactly what we're looking for. I have to hand it over to procurement now.
Yeah.
And then procurement had to have 3 proposals before they could choose mine. It was less than 2 weeks away. I'm like, are you serious? But sometimes, it's the gatekeeper versus the decision maker. It can get stuck in the swirl. It did happen, but it was a headache right up to the last minute.
Wow. A few things to touch on that's why we have great networking groups like these, so that in the event that you need 2 other proposals, you can reach out to good friends and come up with similar outlines and differing prices, and ta-da, you got 3 quotes. Right, so that's one part of the story. For some larger companies, because of their compliance issues, because of the way they're being set up, so they have to go through a process. And for automobile parts companies, sometimes it's getting better now. But before COVID, there are cases where we were being evaluated as if we are supplying parts to the car company, to the automobile parts company. and we need to show whatever compliance on safety. We need to show compliance on IP protection. We need to show a lot of things just for a one-day training, right? So those are procedures, and some companies have that very inflexible way of working. Others tend to be more flexible. Yeah, so it could be those situations, but also in terms of last minute thing, I tend to be very skeptical because I've been burnt way too many times by last minute requests. So anything that happens within 4 weeks tend to be bad news, right? As in, if it's today is 7th May, if anything were to say that we need a training by the end of May or early June, unless either we know the customer really well or the training company knows the customer really well, and it's a case where they are not looking at anyone else. They just have this opportunity and they just want to work with us. Then yeah, it's a go. It's okay to go. But other than that, it's very much likely that they just want to have a comparison proposal. They just want to see what other ideas you have, and of course, what price you can quote, right? Okay. Then I worked with large client ones that I had to drop as they could not hire me directly. Yes. They had to go through a approved international vendor and luckily pays much more for exactly. I mean, there are companies I got a deal canceled because again this is a large IT company, and again I worked with the decision maker. Everything was all good except procurement. So they need to work. They must work with existing vendor, and they do have an existing training vendor that can work with us. The thing is, the vendor needs to mark up 35% plus tax, right? Plus sales tax on whatever we are quoting. So the price went way over budget, and by the time we got around that, there just was not enough time to get things going. Yeah. So sometimes that happens. Eric saying one client required that I send a picture of my visa. The most recent entries tend to prove that I was legally working in China. Oh God! It was every delivery, not just one. Oh my gosh! Okay. Yeah. Different clients, different requirements. China, some China specific thing. There are sometimes requirements to have patient fee, fa piao. So yes, and being a foreign company, we could not issue patient fee. We can only issue 咨询 fee, right? So we can only, issue consulting invoices, not the training invoices. Yeah, so you can partner with someone if you have enough time to wriggle around, enough margins to wriggle around, but not every single time. And sometimes it's like Dan said, you just have to walk away, and unfortunately. Right, and I guess it's not the rates that you're benchmarking, but also the kind of markets that are in, the kind of customer profiles that you want to work with. So I think we have a number of Laowai trainers in this group session here. A lot of foreign trainers based in China. And obviously, we work with foreign companies based in China, which unfortunately they're not reducing in numbers, but the training sessions, training numbers may be shrinking. So yeah, there's a market that we serve really well because we know China, we know the foreign companies. Yep, and then foreign trainers start to train in Chinese companies, right? So yeah, 我们都知道，我懂的。So those are positioning issues. Then expectations. So you go to training. It's not just say I design this training and these are the outcomes. You have to deliver, and then you need to meet expectations. And the question is, whose expectations, the decision makers or the participants or whoever it is. So there could be 4 different, and could be more. I think there's one more that's missing here. So you can be meeting the expectations of sponsors meaning the people who pay for the training. So the decision makers, economic buyers, management, so whoever is forking out the training fees for that. So yeah, they have certain expectations. We send this bunch of participants for training because we want them to do certain things. We want them to deliver certain outcomes. So they want something. The next group is participants. At the end of the training, we'll like to have some happy sheets, some evaluation forms to know how did the training go, how good, bad it is. And these days, I think the going rate is if you don't score 4.5 or above, the training is horrible. So that's just kind of a benchmark to meet with participants. In terms of the solution, as in what if you are talking about certain skill sets, certain tools, certain know-how to do certain things, is it implementable in that company? So, for example, a few years back, this idea of being agile management, agile whatsoever, was a kind of a vogue, the rage kind of thing. But if the company is very top down, very hierarchical, and you're trying to do something like agile training or agile ways of management or even leadership skills, authentic leadership, and these are very top-down hierarchical the leadership styles, is it something that can be implemented easily in a company? Right. There is also the element of you as the trainer. So why you can have the same outline, you can have the same materials, but why did the customer choose you? What is it that you bring to the training session? What kinds of expertise, what kinds of past experiences, what kind of stories, how do you relate and resonate with the participants, and so on. So there's a you factor in there. So those are the various areas to think about. What kind of expectations are you fulfilling, and how do you fulfill that? What is missing here, and probably should add on to that, is L&D, learning development, HR. What are HR expectations? HR may not be the sponsors, they could be someone else. So you may need to think about, what does management want? What do the participants want? What do HR want? And can the skill sets be implemented and kind of be used in the company easily? Right? Luba is saying taking initiative, and public topic. Yes, you want to have initiative, and the company is very hierarchical. Are there conditions created in a company for people to take initiative and not be punished if something goes wrong? Or feedback skills. People need to speak up, but you kind of chop the heads off of the first person who spoke up, especially if you don't like the words they say, right? So yeah, and those are some of the things to consider. And if you feel that the solution may not be a good fit to the customer's company, you may want to raise it up to someone, right? Just to make sure that everybody's on the right page. It could still be, and there has been situations where the issue has been raised to HR, to L&D. There was no access to the senior decision makers because it's hierarchical. The decision makers are kind of in some ivory tower somewhere, and the HR says, yeah, just go ahead, just do it. And sure enough, a lot of participants say, but this does not apply to our company. But hey, at the very least, you have cleared with HR. You spoke to someone. You raised your concerns. I'm not saying that they are going to be happy customers, but it's an additional layer of giving yourself some protection, something to say that there could be certain flags that you need to raise, that the techniques, the methodologies may not fit well into the company's culture, right? So it's just something to highlight and let the customer understand. And finally, about objections, some of the objections you face, and usually price objections. So, long story short, when it comes to objections, the last thing that you want is to end up in an argument with the customer. So you want to avoid arguments at all costs, because being trainers, we definitely are good with putting forward an argument. And being customers, what customers can say is, I don't know what else to say, but I just don't want to hire you, right? I'm not paying, I'm not buying, right? So you don't want to win the argument and lose the sale, so to speak. And the reason, the main reason that you could be ending up with an argument is you try to explain too soon. So the customer says, well, your fees are so high, it's way too high. And we may reply by saying that, no, the fees are not that high at all. I mean, if you look at some of the top trainers in the market, they are even higher than ours. Ours is like mid-range, we're not that high. And the customer says, but it's still too high, right? So you end up in that argument. So this is something that we kind of teach or share with salespeople. So the first thing to do is to affirm them and say, thank you for your feedback. I understand. I understand how this is. I can see your point of view. Sometimes we go into, if it's a customer that you can have better rapport, you can ask them, oh, really? How? Right? Is it really the case? And how do you mean by that? So you can use those ways to handle the objections, and then clarify. I mean, when you say our fees are way too high, I mean, is it high by a little bit, or is it grossly too high? And who do you compare our fees with? So we can ask them. So could you help me understand, how do you set budget? If you are looking. Are you looking for a low-cost trainer, or are you looking for a trainer that can deliver better outcomes? So you may want to have some clarifying on that end. And then you may want to suggest different possibility, as in, and frame it as a question. If I can help you track progress, can you help it? Will it help you to justify the budget, right? And finally, check. If we are agreeable on everything, are we able to moving forward? Right? Just simple 4 steps. I'll get Jamie and people who know me. I'll just share the deck somehow to everybody, so as you can have all this. And in any case, this whole session is being recorded, so it's going to appear into some streaming video platform somewhere. So you get this as well. Right. So some of the recap. Be prepared to be disrupted. Oops, my bad. So, I think I put up the wrong slide for this. Okay, let me forget about that slide. My bad, wrong slide. But be prepared to be disrupted. That's true for trainers. What I would like to ask everybody is, what are some of your key takeaways? And again, feel free to type, feel free to unmute, and feel free to share.